I'm still in Gdansk, Poland, tucked in a little corner of a church parking lot. I had to abandon the street parking because my cat got some ticks on him. And where we are currently parked, there's no ticks at all. There's a lot of people walking around here, but you can't have it all. It's shaded. That's my number one criteria these days. I need shade from the evil sun. And why I'm here is a bit of a story. I was actually up to the Russian border to Kaliningrad, and I found out they don't issue any visas at the border. So I had to go back to Gdansk to visit the Russian embassy to ask them for a visa and also about my rights being in Russia. I almost had to fight my way in. They didn't really want to have me in there. In regards to the visa, he said that I need an invitation from someone, a person or an organization inside of Russia that invite me. Then I can get a visa. And which was kind of weird. I told him I'm just a tourist. I'm gonna drive through it with my motorhome and that's it. So I don't know anyone in Russia and I certainly don't have an invitation. He makes a phone call and comes back to me with a business card for a company just down the street from where we were. And he tells me, go to this person and they will print you an invitation. It's just gonna cost a little bit of money. So, great start, right? You have to pay someone for a fake invitation letter to go into Russia, apparently. That's how I interpret it anyways. And then I start asking about my rights. And he tells me that you have the same rights in Russia as you have in United Kingdom, Germany, or anywhere else. This was a big concern of mine because I don't know when to shut up. So I need clear instructions on what I can say and not say. I asked them specifically, can I call the war in Ukraine for being a war? And they told me that there's no Russian law that prohibits me to use that word, but basically I shouldn't, was the message. Because if now I quote what he said to me, if I draw too much attention to myself, I can be prosecuted. And I told him, you just told me there's no law that says what I have to call a thing. So what would I be prosecuted for? He was a little bit uncomfortable by this question. I push on this a little bit, but he doesn't give me any satisfactory answers, to put it this way. One thing I wanted to do so much in Kaliningrad was to talk to people and ask them what is their opinion on the conflict in Ukraine, right? But I can't draw too much attention to myself. Huh. But I thought, okay, I'll try to just shut up. And I'll try to be a dumb tourist eating ice cream all the way through Kaliningrad, right? I can do that. Maybe that would be a challenge for me to shut up and not speak my mind. So I go to this referral they gave me to pay for an invitation. And he tells me a couple of more details. For example, I have to register myself where I go. This is apparently something that the hotels do automatically for all the foreigners. They register to some kind of a Russian authority. This foreigner, he stays with us now for this and that long, yada yada. But driving in a motorhome, how would I even go about registering myself? Apparently there's no way to do that as a private person. And then he tells me that you can always go into a hotel, pay the hotel despite not being there, but I will run the risk that they will pocket the money without actually registering me if I don't also stay there. They kind of see the business opportunity, so to speak. So, you know, already there's a number of problems with me going into Kaliningrad. So I go back home to my car and I start Googling this like an idiot. I want to know, has anyone gone through Kaliningrad with a motorhome and how did they register themselves and etc. And I cannot find any such accounts whatsoever. From what I read online, if the police catches you or the border agent, whoever, and you don't have that valid registration, then technically you are an illegal alien in the country and you can be subject to deportation. That's really not something I would like to happen to myself. They escort me to an airplane or whatever while my car is still on a parking lot. I have been deported once, so I know what happens. I was deported from the United States because I entered without having a valid visa. I was in custody until the next return flight, and then I had two nice policemen escort me to the airplane. And not until I was halfway back in Europe over the Atlantic Ocean is when the flight attendant came to me and gave me back my passport. What would I possibly do if I get deported out and my car is still left behind? So I had a massive funk yesterday because I was really looking forward to this. I can live with not seeing Kaliningrad. That's okay. But it brought all of my other travel plans into question because pretty much half the world today is a shithole in terms of human rights, free speech, etc. Det räcker nu alltså, herregud. Jag har tjatat hela jävla dagen. Tyst med dig nu, Barsky. Så. Det räcker, Barsky. It used to be the case that when he was outside, he left me alone and I could do my thing. But now I keep hearing him all day long because if he's not inside the car talking to me, he's outside talking to someone else. Så det kan vara tyst. When you're inside a country as a regular tourist, you usually have the return ticket already booked and everything set up, so there's never any problems. Driving into a country with a motorhome is going to be problematic because of short-term visas, often valid for just a couple of weeks or 30 days. That's not going to be enough time for me to explore a whole country with a motorhome. I'm afraid that would create a very stressful situation, especially if I go from one country to the next country and then have to hassle my way to get a new visa, maybe register myself or whatever, and all of that crap, and then keep repeating this process for each new country. Then what would happen if I overstay my welcome in a country and I'm landlocked by other countries that I don't have visa-free travel to? You know, I could get into a whole lot of troubles. And I'm not so sure anymore if I want to go through all of that, or even if it's possible. There were a number of other problems too going into Kaliningrad. For example, one cannot use bank cards in there, so you would have to take out your whole budget and somehow get rubles before or after you cross the border. I don't even know how to do that, to be honest. I'm afraid that if I drive to Japan, half of all my travels is going to be just a bunch of paperwork and time spent trying to learn what laws and regulations apply in that country. My line of thinking today is that I'm probably going to stay in the European Union. There's so much to see and do here, and it has been such a joy to just go to new places and new countries without even stopping the car. There's nothing I need to think about. It feels like my life has taken a whole different turn now. For so many years, I had my mind set. I was going to travel to Asia and Japan specifically with my car. And now it's like, do I really want to do that? I can personally live with a whole lot of risk, but there's just one thing I don't want to risk, and that is losing my car and my cat. Although he cannot shut up. I've already been questioned in person, why would I want to go into Russia and quote-unquote support the war in Ukraine through paying taxes? I do not personally believe 1 second that going into Kaliningrad and having an ice cream supports any war. It's not ice cream sales in Kaliningrad that supports the war, it's Putin's oil and gas exports. And you can of course tell all the Germans to stop heating their house in the winter to not support the war in Ukraine, right? The point is that people's lives has to continue, move on, and be as normal as possible. We cannot all just stop living because we are afraid that inadvertently a tax dollar could go to the war or not. Secondly, Russia is heavily sanctioned today by most of the world. And did that solve any problems? Well, short answer is no. It seemingly didn't even hurt Russia economically because they are the fastest growing country today in Europe in terms of GDP growth. It started to rain, hallelujah. Skynda dig! This cat. Come. Come. He was out in the rain. Did you hear just how loud he can scream when he wants to get back into the car? He screams like his life is over and he needs to get into the car immediately, this second. Otherwise, he's going to die or something. This little cat makes so much noise all the time. People outside were laughing when they heard the cat. They're like, what the hell is going on? Anyways, we have tried to sanction countries that we do not like. A lot of countries for a long time. For example, Iran, Cuba, etc. They have been sanctioned for, I believe, well over 60 years. Can someone tell me what did that change? What good came out of it? Nothing. The only thing these sanctions accomplish, in my opinion, is to hurt people on both sides. And why would we want to hurt people? I don't understand that. For example, we closed all the borders from Kaliningrad. So we literally locked people into Kaliningrad, the people living there. Other people like myself can still go there if we get the visa from Russia, blah, blah. But we locked them up, 1 million plus people living inside Kaliningrad now, basically in a big prison, right? They used to go across the border into Poland, Lithuania to do a lot of their shopping, etc. Now they can't go anywhere. So you tell me, how on earth is that supposed to make the people living in Kaliningrad more friendly towards the Western world? In my opinion, locking these people up can only have the effect that they grow even more anti-Western, if they're even anti-Western to begin with. I don't know, because I haven't yet been there. That was one of the things I wanted to find out by going into Kaliningrad. I wanted to talk to the people and get their view and their opinion straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. One thing I learned when I studied economics a long time ago was that the more economic cooperation and trade you have between two different countries, the less likely they are to go into war with each other. And it makes total sense, doesn't it? One of the things that made me question whether I wanted to go into Kaliningrad or not was actually knowing they cannot go out of Kaliningrad. So I would feel very bad walking around there like a tourist, eating my ice cream, knowing that these people in Kaliningrad, they cannot go out and be tourists in Europe. But I'm allowed inside to be a tourist in Kaliningrad. It's just not fair. There's no justice in that. But again, should I or anyone else stop living their life? Most of the world is always going to be fucked up in one or another way. I mean, you tell me one country that has not been engaged in war. And obviously it was not the funding that goes into the country during the war that made it happen in the first place. So if I really wanted to make sure that my tax money doesn't fund something inappropriate, should I leave the planet? Is that it? We like to punish other people for having the wrong opinions. We do this towards ourselves sometimes in our subgroups in society. If someone has a politically incorrect opinion, which of course can vary by time, then we like to punish them even amongst ourselves. We like to exclude them from the public debate, etc. And we like to punish people even more so when we're talking about foreigners in another country. But we have to be humble enough, in my opinion, that all of us on both sides, we are subject to propaganda and being affected by that propaganda. I want to be uber clear just to have that stated. I do not support any war whatsoever. Absolutely not. I feel terribly sad for the destruction and the killings that has been going on in Ukraine. I honestly believe that it's only by disagreeing and having a transparent discussion about things that we can learn from each other. We are all guilty of not knowing. We're all guilty of not having enough knowledge in our head, and we are guilty of biases and xenophobia. Anyone who speaks his mind is doing the rest of society a big favor, in my opinion. So please feel free to disagree with me. Bring on all the hate. Bash me like crazy in the comments below. I love that shit. Anyways, I've been talking way too much. Until the next time, ciao.